Now we're ready. Let's call this meeting to order, and let's start with the roll call.
Carol Perez.
Here.
John Miller.
Here.
Peter Dwyer.
Here.
Chris Cabezas.
Here.
Vlad Dumitrescu.
Here.
Jim Chard.
Here. We've got a full house today. Okay. Any changes to the agenda?
No.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Carol Perez.
Yes.
John Miller.
Yes.
Peter Dwyer.
Yes.
Chris Cabezas.
Yes.
Vlad Dumitrescu.
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. Now we get to the minutes. I do not think there are any. So that one's easy to accomplish. We can now do a swearing in of the public. Anybody who is intending to speak today.
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So we'll hold off on quasi-judicial and get comments from the public. Come right over here. Oops.
My name is Mark Schlesman. My wife, Amy Davidson, is with me. We have an item that will hopefully be addressed in next month's meeting, but we will not be able
Could you state
to.
your address, please, for the record?
202 Northeast 5th Terrace. And we won't be able to be here in person next month, so I thought it was good for us to come introduce ourselves so you know who we are. We'll be on the phone, but obviously that's not quite the same as being in person.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Okay. Any presentations, Michelle?
No.
All right. Wow, we're moving right along here. So we have one quasi-judicial item, and let me read the instructions on that. This hearing shall be conducted in accordance with the City of Delray Beach quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be permitted to present their cases. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each, or a maximum of 6 minutes if the person represents an organization or a group of people who are present but agree not to speak. The City Commission, board members, staff, and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant may be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. The decision to approve or deny an application or appeal may not legally be made upon personal views as to color, views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor a decision be based on the numbers of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether the project meets the requirements of law, the comprehensive plan, and the land development regulations. Do you want to present first, and then we'll do the the comments? Is it?
Yes, you can just introduce the file
Yeah.
and then
No.
go ahead and do ex parte communications. Okay, for the record, I'm Katharina Palavoda, Senior Historic Preservation Planner. I'd like to enter file 2024-233 into the record. It's a level 1 site plan and certificate of appropriateness for Sunday Village Block 61. The applicants are here to present.
Well, let's do ex parte. Carol?
I had an email from Roger Cope.
Vlad?
Should I mention that?
Sure. He mentioned to me before the meeting started that he had a prior relationship with the designer that predates this designer, so it was not part of the Sunday Village that's before us tonight. He's indicated that
that he would not get any special private gain or loss relative to any vote today. It wouldn't affect his or her relative, business associate, or principal in making a vote today. So he had discussions with prior people involved with Sunday Village because it's been going on for
Yeah.
such a
So
long
that
time.
wouldn't really pertain to this.
So yes, so he's able to vote on this item.
John?
Email from Roger Cope. That's it.
I had a phone call from Roger Cope.
None.
Email from Roger Cope, no discussion.
Can I ask a clarification question?
Sure.
The communications from Mr. Cope, was that as an applicant?
I have no idea.
Is he part of-
Seabird Architects is the,
Is Mr. Cope still engaged as part of your team?
not right now, no.
Okay.
It was not. It was as a citizen comment.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And have you received this communication?
No, but it's okay. I waive my right to see the communication.
Okay. And you do have a right to see it if you'd like to.
It's okay.
Okay. All right.
Shall
Go
we-
ahead.
I'm the
Shall
only one
we-
that didn't get it. I'd like to see it.
So, okay. So here tonight, level 1 site plan and COA application.
Sorry,
Oh,
you
sorry.
may have
Sorry.
already done it.
Jared
but you-
Hockman, 7900 Glades Road. It's the first time up here, right?
Thank you.
7900 Glades Road, Boca Raton, Florida, Suite 540, with PEP Capital on behalf of Sunday Village. So we're here tonight for level 1 site plan and certificate of appropriateness on Block 61. As you all know, Sunday Village is comprised of 4 parcels. Block 61 is the one in orange. And so specifically tonight, I want to focus on the area within the red box, the historic homes. And just a quick outline, we're here tonight to talk about the proposed hood vents for future restaurants. Previously, we came before the board seeking approval to change the use of these from different uses, retail to restaurants, and so we're here tonight to seek approval proactively on the proposed hood designs for in the event a tenant needs them for building out kitchens and things like that. We're here to talk about the ADA ramps. I believe they might have been previously shown on the site plan, but they were never part of the elevations previously, so the new architectural set now has those integrated into it, so you can see them on the structure, as well as bring to the board's attention that as we are rehabilitating the structures, we would be replacing damaged wood only as we restore each of the homes. So we'll go in order of all the homes. So starting with building A, the rectory. On the left side, you'll see what was originally approved. And so during the design process and as we're working with tenants and signing leases for all of the spaces, it was brought to our attention the concern about people falling off the porches. And so tonight here, as we go through, you'll see we're requesting to put railings on each of the porches. On the rear, so down below, you'll see again railing detail the change, and then the proposed location for the hood vents. South side, again showing what was approved, and then down below you'll see the additional railings. I forgot to put a circle over there, but that is the proposed hood vent location. Here's a roof plan showing them towards the rear, and then here is a picture that was taken by staff. Sorry, I stole it from the staff report of the current restoration of the rectory. And then jumping into building C next to it, so adding handrails to the front steps, shown here. In the rear, adding the railing to the architectural elevation. In the original site plan, as you can see on the top right corner. We were always showing it, but want to add it to the elevations. And then from the south side, you can also see it's now added. And then for the hood vents, also on the rear of the building. Building C is, for example, it's rented out to ice cream tenant, Van Leeuwen. So I don't know if they're going to need this, but again, just seeking the overall approval. Cathcart. So originally with Cathcart, when we came before the board, we focused on trying to restore the building back to its original historic presence. So on the left is a picture from the original Coquina Wall. I think sometime actually based on the car, I don't want to get it wrong by any aficionados, because Mike Cavelli would be very upset with me for getting the car wrong. But on the right side, you can see the rendering we did, and the rendering on the right was what we originally were going towards to restore it. And so, we know later on, eventually someone did add in a railing to the first floor. And so we're now coming back, realizing that we should have kept the railing on the first floor for, safety reasons, so that nobody falls off the porch. And then the railing on the first floor would match the second floor as well for consistency. So the south side, the west side, and then, sorry, I forgot to circle it again, but you can see on the rear, that's where a proposed location would be on the west side. As well as the ramp, again, it was on the site plan, but just being added now to the elevation. The connection of B and F. So in this rendering, you can see where we didn't have any railings whatsoever, on the raised area, and so coming before you now, seeking the approval to put the railing. There's an image from the rear of the rendering, and so again, adding the railing to the elevations. This is the north view, south view, and then the roof plan, again, showing you the vent hood locations on the rear. And then last but not least, building G on the corner. Here was a zoomed in rendering. You can see where we had the railing already on the plan. And so the changes now, same thing, putting a railing in the front, a handrail for the step, as well as on the north side, you can see how the rear deck was not shown on the original elevations, and so now they're being added back in. And then you have the hood vent, which I remembered to put a circle on. And then on the rear as well, you can see the vent hoods and the decking. And then you see the ramp on the bottom left side. And then on the south side, this is the southwest First Street. This would be blocked by the planters, so this would never be seen by the road, but this is what the elevation would look like, having the ADA ramp and the deck in the rear. And then the roof plan. And then we did remove the second ADA ramp from the front. I think after working through it with staff, it was deemed unnecessary, and that it was seen from the front of the building, and so to keep the historic character of not putting a ramp in the front of the building. So we've eliminated it. So now there will just be the AD ramp in the back, and that will be filled in with landscaping. And then here's a detail in your files, but here's the detail of them. You've got two different versions. The ones on the right, these are those have wood siding, so that way they blend in with the architectural style of these structures. And then the one, in the middle right here, that one is stucco. That would be proposed to go on the ice cream shop. Building C is the only stuccoed historic structure on the site. The others all have wood siding. And then the detail on the left, that would just be, that's your 2D plan view of the cover around it, and then up top on the left, you've got the railing detail. And that is it.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you.
Michelle, who's going to present for staff?
Okay, as previously mentioned, this is a level 1 site plan and certificate of appropriateness. This is for Sunday Village. As you all can tell, there's a very extensive history. I won't go through it since it's in your staff reports.
Thank you.
Mhm.
A number of us lived it, so.
The request before the board tonight is the level 1 site plan certificate of appropriateness. It's for the installation of new hood vents on all historic structures within block 61. So here we can see an aerial. The little area in the red here are the subject structures on the proposal. Construction of ADA ramps in association with these historic structures, which also includes after-the-fact replacement of wood siding and the removal of the chimney for Building A, which is the rectory. Repair and replacement of wood siding in association with the historic structures that are wood. And I believe that's it for this request. Let's see. Okay, so here you can see this is all of Block 61. You can see that we're just looking at the historic structures on the southeast corner of the site. This is a close-up of the site plan. So here, all the red outlines you can see are where the ramps and the hand railings are proposed to go. I'll show you a little bit further on with where the hood vents. Just for the record, they're requesting 2, specifically one's for air intake and the other one I believe is for exhaust. So each structure will have 2 hood vents. We did work with the applicants over time to try to make sure that the hood vents weren't visible from the public right away. So all are proposed on the west facing side. So you won't see them. They won't be prominent from the east. So the front facades, they won't be as visible. As Mr. Hockman did mention, they do have 3 different types of ventings. The top 2 were going to be proposed for all the wood-sided structures, and the material that's going to be used is hardy board, which is appropriate because this isn't an original part of the structure. The third one, I believe, is for the stucco building, which I believe is building C, and that's just to match the siding on that one. This image that's really small here are for the handrails. I believe the handrails are going to be wood with the rest of the railings to be aluminum. Okay, I'm just going to show some images. Staff recently went on site and did a full site visit for Block 61. So these are all the structures that are existing as they are today on site. This is the rectory. So as you can see, after the fact replacement for wood siding, the structure's already been completed. It's noted in the staff report also that the chimney was also removed. Staff was aware of it. We just had to make sure that they included it on the site plan. So that's why it's part of the proposal tonight. Okay, here's the west elevation of the rectory today. And here you can see all the additional buildings, historic buildings on Block 61. Here's another image from the southwest elevation of the rectory. Okay, this is Cathcart currently. Okay, more west elevations of the historic structures. Okay, so the highlighted areas are going to be floor plans and roof plans that show where the hood vents and the railings are going to be situated on each of the structures. So first one is Building A, which is the rectory. So here on the west side, you can see the 2 proposed hood vents. And then the red outline here on the floor plan is showing where the hand railings are going to be, in addition to the red highlighted areas where the ramp is proposed to go. Here's some elevations. So here we can see the chimney's been removed, And then all the highlighted areas show the ADA ramps. The top up here, we can see where the hood vent's proposed. This is the south elevation. This is the west. You can see the hood vents are more prominent here, which is in the rear of the historic structures. So it'll be shown in the middle of the site. And this is the east, so you can see that you can't see the hood vents, so they're not visible from the public right away on this structure. And then the proposed railings. Okay, this is the proposed roof plan for buildings B and F. So here you can see this is also on the west side of the structures. Here you can see all the hand railings as well as the proposed ramp. Okay, this is the west side, so you can see most of the ramps and the hood vents are more prominent. This is the south. Proposed east, so they're slightly visible, but not as prominent as the west. Okay, this is a view from building B, and then another view from building F. This is building C, so we can see the west side of the hood vents. And then, as they noted, I think this was the one that they removed the original ramp from, so they have the guardrails on the front in the east, and on the west they have a longer ramp. Okay, this is building C again on the west side. This is south. This is north. Okay, and this is the east side. This is building E this is also Cathcart. So you can see the railings are all on the outsides of the structure on the first floor, and then the ramp is to the south. Okay, so here, the north side, you can see the hood vents are on the west. This is the south elevation. The west, where you can see the hood vents. And the east. This is building G. Hood vents are also on the west side. Here you can see the visual of the railings and the ramp. This proposed south side. This is the west. This is the north. And this is the east. Okay. The Secretary of the Interiors that applied were standards 1, 2, 5, and 9. These are some of the excerpts. We did note that with the request for the change of wood siding, all the replacements, that appropriately any type of wood siding that needs to be replaced should be beyond repair. We did have a site plan technical item, as well as we talked to the construction workers on site, that they did document quite a bit of all the different changes that they had for the siding. So they're going to give us a documentation showing that the damaged wood beyond repair has been replaced, and what was salvageable is still existing on the structure. So we just added that as a site plan technical item. Okay, and then addition to, okay, we did mention the siding, the ramps and the guardrails, we did consider those also appropriate materials. Okay, and then let's see, roof shapes and materials were the standards for visual compatibility that applied to this request. And
Did we have, at the time of print with the staff report, we didn't have the state's response?
Oh, yes. So we did review it because as a CLG, they now offer a review for any type of ADA ramps, materials for historic structures. So the state.
They.
Huh?
Who said they?
Oh, I said they. Okay. We did submit the ADA ramps and the hood vents to the Department of State, Division of Historic Resources, Bureau of Historic Preservation, to be specific. They did the review and they had no comments. So all the requests for the ADA ramps were considered appropriate at the state level as well as staffs. Thank you for that. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, any comments from the public? Now, I know there were a couple people in the back of the room who stepped out.
I'll just take over for them.
Well, we can do that.
George Long, 46 North Swenton Avenue. I'm going to leave this business about Department of Interior and visual compatibility and all that stuff up to you guys. But believe it or not, it's hard to explain, but I was a construction manager for several years, impersonating one anyway. And a couple things I can tell you, you have to have a good vent. No vent, you will have grease pouring down literally, on the roof, around everywhere. Vents are important. Secondly, as for the rails are concerned, and that's a safety issue, and people can trip on anything and fall off anything. I've seen people hurt themselves by tripping over a drop of concrete the size of a quarter and going to the hospital. Really have, not kidding. So those are important items. They make sense and they're necessary, but you guys worry about what it looks like.
I think there are a couple of people who have come in late, probably not signed in or sworn in.
Good
Sandy?
evening. Not only am I not signed in or sworn in, but I would ask, since I missed public comment, I thought the meeting started at 6, that we'd be able to introduce a resolution from the Preservation Trust to the board, reopen public comment. I would ask the chair to grant that request, and it'll take less time for me.
Do you have comments on the quasi-judicial item?
Pardon me?
Do you have comments on the
I
quasi-judicial?
do not have comments on this matter.
Okay, I would, if you guys are open to opening it back up, I would suggest that we do it after the quasi-judicial
I
item is-
agree with that.
Okay.
That's fine. I just didn't want you to adjourn before I.
In the meantime, you and Price might want to sign in and
I'll sign in.
swear in.
and
Swear them in
I'm
after
sworn.
this.
Yeah.
Thank you. And by the way, for the record, Sandy Zeller, 209 Northwest 12th Street, Delray Beach.
Okay, any cross-examination? Any rebuttal?
I have something, if I could get Simeon to come to the podium.
Hello, I'm Simeon with Steve Siebert at 1010 Gateway Boulevard, Unit 103. Yes, ma'am.
How are you?
Pretty good.
Good. So quick question, and just, reviewing this, I don't know that I saw this elevation that's on screen here, so the drawing on the right, the way, the vent stacks are designed to look like chimneys, right, essentially, so that they can somewhat obscure the mechanical equipment. But the way this one is positioned over an open area on the porch,
Yes.
it doesn't look right. Are you expecting that eventually you'll have to slide that over, or what's your?
Well, no, the issue that we have is that this particular building, it's a double pitched roof. I would prefer to put it on the top roof, but the problem with that, since the pitch is so large, I would have to make the screen taller, and that is going to start showing along the back.
That's okay.
So
that would be okay.
Okay, I mean, if the board's okay with it, and we can easily put it on the resolution for me to move it to the higher pitched one.
Yeah.
The only reason I didn't do that was I was just worried on how much it was going to show from the front elevation. So that's the only reason I put it on the lower roof,
Thank you.
so I can hide
Yeah.
it. But I mean, it's.
I mean, if you were to come in with this after the board approved it and say, hey, we realize it's in the wrong spot, I think we would approve it administratively. So
Okay.
let's address it now.
Sure.
It just looks weird because there's no chimney below it.
Yeah.
I thought you may have caught that, so.
No, we did that on purpose just to hide it. I would prefer to put it up there because another thing is, since that area is open, we would also have to do a little box out to hide the ductwork going in. But if I put it on the main roof, I don't have to hide any ductwork and put it on top. I just did it because I was worried about the pitch of the roof and it showing through. But it's not a problem if you guys want to make a comment to put it on the top one. We'll show it there on the certified set with no issues.
And then the second item I have is, we deal with this on other projects as well, where porch railings are going in on around the ground floor or around raised seating areas. And I think, and I just want to double check that this is the case, that the Florida Building Code requires that railing when you have an area that's above 30 inches above grade or floor. Is that partly why this is happening as well?
Sort of. So one of the most of these houses are about 24 to 28 inches off of the ground. So technically, they're not required to have a railing per the Florida Building Code because it's a couple of inches lower than the requirement. But because they're commercial properties, we were worried that even a couple of inches for the limit, even 24 inches is still enough for somebody to fall in and potentially hurt themselves, which is why we're proposing to put those railings there, even though we are, yes, technically about 4 inches lower than, 2 to 4 inches lower than what would have been required for us to put them in the first place. So technically we are not required to put them in.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I just wanted to be sure.
Did you have any questions of staff?
The only rebuttal that I have for Miss Katharina was, I believe when she mentioned regarding the railings, I just wanted to clarify that all of the actual guardrails themselves, the pickets, the top rail, the bottom rail, all of that is going to be in wood. The only thing that's going to be in aluminum is just the handrail that's only going to be at the ramps and at the stairs. All of the other guardrails that just protect from the fall, they don't need to have a handrail. All of those are going to be in, so all of those guardrails will be in wood. And then the only thing that wasn't brought up that I just want to bring up to the board, if you want to go to building E, the only place that we have an aluminum actual rail would be on the second floor. We have an aluminum rail that's going to sit on top of the existing wood railing. That one is because of code. Code requires a 42-inch guardrail on the second floor. The existing railing is only about 34 inches, so we had to put an aluminum strip at the 42-inch height to keep it from falling, and we followed the recommendation of the board. We made it as small and as minimal as possible so it kind of disappears and the decorative wood handrail will shine much brighter than that.
And it has to be aluminum, it can't be wood?
I think we can do it out of wood. I just have to check what the span is. If the span is too great, we might have to put some posts to keep it from flexing. But I don't see a problem with us not doing it in wood. I'm worried about blending wood, a new wood element with an existing wood element, which is why we did it out of aluminum.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you guys want to do it out of wood, I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay.
It's just the only railing that we had to raise to meet the code requirement is for building E on the second floor.
And how much is it not meeting code? You said how many?
By about 6 inches on the second floor, because the existing
So
railing
could
is about
those-
34 to 36 inches.
Just because this is the first I'm hearing about this and we're in rebuttal, and I just want to ask a question, and perhaps it's something we could deal with outside of the board meeting solutions, but perhaps the railings, once they get reinstalled, could be installed slightly higher so that you wouldn't have to have that top rail.
Yeah, that can
But
be.
maybe we could talk about offline, because I don't think it's an item that I feel like the board has to say yes or no
But
to.
yes, that could be done as well. We try to
Okay.
just keep it at the original height, but yeah, we
Okay.
can always raise that railing to eliminate that need.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's start with the board. Peter, do you want to lead off?
Sure. Thank you for the presentation. I think it looks interesting. I don't really have any comments on the design, except the one that was just brought up about that railing on the second floor. It is a little odd. You'd have to add that extra piece, but I can see why. So that's all I have.
All right. Go around the room.
Overall, I think I'm okay with everything that's being presented. If you raise that railing up by 6 inches, what would go on the bottom? Would it be a filler piece?
Well, that's what I'm almost thinking. I didn't want to, since you're asking the question, I would do, if we were going to work with the applicant on what the solution would be, since the railings have all been removed or are in storage anyway, have to be reinstalled, is I would reinstall the railings to be at the height that they need to be at and put the piece at the bottom rather than at the top. So if the opening was too great at the bottom where they'd have to have something there so someone couldn't fall through, that's where I would put the horizontal. So I think we can work with the applicant on
make it
the
aesthetically-
solution, whether it's wood or aluminum. Obviously, wood would be the preferred for a historic structure. But, you know, they've been great to work with, so I'm not worried about the solution.
Did you say these railings already exist?
Yeah, so if you could please go to the Cathcart house. So the Cathcart house, you could see on the drawing on the left, there were railings around the entirety of the second floor wraparound. Those were all removed and were put into storage and saved so that they can be reinstalled. Those railings also, just as a quick FYI, were the inspiration for the railing designs for the buildings that face Atlantic. So they were very important to the design of this building and other buildings in the project.
But the other 4 buildings, the railing looks very different than from the Cathcart house.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I'll wait
Some
till
had, the rectory at one point did have some vertical railings, and they were standard vertical railing pickets. They weren't, none of the structures had anything as decorative as Cathcart.
Okay. John? Those weren't my questions, by the way. I'm going to reserve
good.
that until the end.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm okay with most everything here. The excuse me, and if the railings on Cathcart are a little more ornate, I think it just helps draw attention to that house, which is really the feature of all of those anyway. The siding that was replaced that already has been done, was that the same profile as existing?
We were in on-site, which was what, 2-3 weeks ago.
It was last week.
2 weeks ago? Michelle was out last week.
Oh, yeah, 2 weeks ago.
So this is the structure here. You know, this, I think it was Miss Finn, who was on the board prior, had asked about what's going on with this structure, and then we went out and investigated and saw all the siding was off. And there was issues with the deterioration and the condition of existing. So when we met with the contractor, and then there's a specific contractor who is just the contractor to these structures, they assured us that the profile is the same, that they reutilized some of the old material where they could. So they took material off and put material back. We let them know that moving forward, they are not to remove everything and then ask for the approval. They should just give us a quick call so we can come out. Photo documentation is very important. The repair of siding is what was on the approval where needed, not a removal of all siding. So that's why you see in the staff report our comment to focus on repair, not removing all of the siding. So they understand that, but they do expect as they move through these structures that they're, and I've seen it.
This was the first one,
Mm-hmm.
so there's more to.
And once we were notified of it, we said, hey, you can't do that. You've got to get approval for that. So they haven't done that again. But you can see that Cathcart one. Don't we have a better one of the rear, Katharina? There. So, all right. Am I not going to get my little ghost circle? There it is. Do you see right here how there's a wood wall?
Mm-hmm.
So there was a section that had been pulled apart just because in the move it was falling apart. And the move was vertical, you remember. And you can see all of these supports here. This building is going through a heavy structural support. So in order to facilitate that, certain sections of wall had to open. They found when they were doing this that there was no internal structural support walls. That the supports were all the load was pushed to the outside of the porch. I think there may have been one wall in there. So in the effort to preserve the building from falling apart, yeah, they opened up some of the walls, which we understand. We just have said, just let us know. Photograph it, document it so that we have it for future. Because in 10 years from now, if someone comes in and they think, oh, this is all original siding. Well, is it? if we have it documented, then we can say, this is, that isn't. So I hope that answers the question you were asking.
No, it does. As far as the vent hoods, so obviously they're necessary, and Mr. Long spoke to that. Are you planning to put these in proactively, or are you waiting until you have a client that needs those and then you will do the work?
The latter. Yeah, we're not proactively installing these.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know if you got a BOGO on vent hood somewhere and
I love
you want to
BOGOs,
slap them all
but,
in, because I would agree. I wouldn't approve of that. I drove by the Terrymore house on the way in, which is Dada, and there's a huge giant one on the back there. So obviously it's necessary.
That one is the case for why we're making them be so structurally apparent.
Yeah, that one's pretty ugly.
Because that was, we didn't know. They just needed to cool the kitchen off in this tiny little historic home. But Mr. Simeon and Siebert's team have done one recently. I don't know if it was installed, but for Space of Mind.
It's installed across.
So right across the street here is the second building for Space of Mind School, the gray building, and they have a hood vent like these. We asked the same question of the applicant. In some cases, some of the buildings may not need both. As I understand, the 2 hood vents is when they're incorporating a gas cooking situation, that you need an intake and an external exhaust because you have gas. If somebody's not instituting a gas cooking situation, then it's going to be 1 hood vent. So we've asked those same questions because we don't really want to see 2 hood vents put on every single building if only one's going to be used.
Yeah, or possibly none.
And you remember the way the recent reapproval that came through the request with Mr. Cavelli was to change all of them to restaurant so that they could ensure they could park it in case all of them became restaurants, but they're still not even certain if they will all have food use. So they may end up with a retail use.
Retail, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's what I was concerned about.
Can I jump in since we're on the vent? The location shown on the plan of the vents, will those change? Let's say the restaurant wants the kitchen somewhere else. Will they have to build the kitchen where those vents are now shown?
Yes, and if they wanted to change it or something happened, they would have to go through a COA that potentially could be an admin approval if the vents are still in the rear of the building. If they were to move the vents somewhere on the sides or the front, then we would probably have to bring it back to the board to get your sign off.
Just to bring something up, I'm not sure if the maintenance is an issue or not. I mean, those need to be accessed in some way. I don't know if you expect any complication with that or
On the cleaning of them?
Yes, and what we do is we design those vents to where one of those walls is removable, so they can remove it, do whatever they need to do, and put it back.
So they'll access with a ladder or something.
Well, yes, they would still have
From
to access
the
it with a
outside.
ladder. That's correct.
Okay. I'm just saying, kind of have to be careful.
Yeah,
Not-
well, yes.
Not to damage anything. I was just curious. I don't have a real problem with them purposely. Couple of other things, for my own sake. The chimney at the rectory was removed because of what?
Let's ask the applicant.
Oh, sorry, the applicant.
If we could have Simeon, if you could please.
Okay, the original, the chimney that was on the northeast side was not original.
Okay, but it was there for many years.
Yes, yeah. So
I moved here 20 years ago, and it was kind of iconic, that chimney. And I'm looking at the item standard 4, that most property change over time. Those changes have acquired historic significance. Would that affect in any way the decision or not?
So I believe when we discussed this internally, I believe that the applicant had come through once before to talk about the removal of the chimney. I think it was with Mr. Cavelli.
yeah, on the previous our previous approval of in 2022 with the overall site plan did include building A, the rectory, and that did include the removal of that chimney.
And then the one that we're looking at that's on the screen here on the left, that's a different chimney there were 2 chimneys on this building, wasn't there?
No, there was just the one that was.
I think it's one.
Because
on
one
the
had
front
the
left.
actual chimney that went down the north side of the
Oh.
building that is not on the left elevation here. And what we're seeing on the left elevation, if you go to the west elevation, is popping out of the top of the building. And so I feel like that was a later addition.
So, sorry. In the 2018 approval, there was a chimney which was what was existing in 2022 when we came before the board for approval, that we had deemed after doing research that chimney was not original, and that what appeared from photographs that there was only a center chimney, but the one that you're referring to was not original and was added at a later date.
What I'm saying is I think that the one that was on the north elevation that we have photos of, I think that was already removed with the previous
Okay.
COA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes,
And
it
I
was
think
removed
that
in the previous
this one here was added to the plans, and now you're
Right.
asking to remove that
Yes,
one.
yes.
So I don't think
Sorry,
this
thank you.
was the
So it has no real.
original one.
Right,
We would have to go and double check that, but I remember there was a whole separate chimney that was on the exterior of the
right.
building. Yeah.
That's
Not just the brick piece popping out the roof.
Yeah, based on photographs that we had, which were before 1928, before
And it was over
for the
here.
hurricane. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just remember there was a chimney, this vertical
Yes.
thing.
It was
As part
over,
of the rectory.
It was on
Yeah, it was
this
on the left
side
side.
over
Okay.
here,
Right.
and that one was
Okay.
already approved for removal.
I mean, I'm not gonna make a.
No, it's a good
Yeah,
comment.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
actually like that chimney, which
Yeah.
that vertical little X. The other thing related to this, are they gonna be colored in some way? Are we using a palette of Victorian sort of colors? Or
No, so right now the approved palette is the white with the cream. The only building that right now has approval for color is Cathcart, which is I think it was called like Parisian green. But then as tenants come and sign leases, if they want to come back before the board and request approval, a change of shutters or door color changes, anything like that, we left it on top. We left it for the tenant to come before the board with whatever
so
might
they
go
will
with.
be able to
Yeah.
to use their own. I mean, with approval, of course.
Well, we
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
hope that there will be some differentiation in color scheme from one
Yes,
building to the next.
I would hope.
In talking with our partners at the state, they discourage all the buildings with the same exact color scheme, the same exact roof color, all of the repetition
Right.
in color. They would prefer to see some unique colors that would have been appropriate for Victorian or
Right.
for a small min traditional building, So we have encouraged the applicant to do that, but they're at this point where they're building and they're waiting until they have tenants so that then they can customize and come up with a scheme. Now, as a reminder, some colors are approved at an admin level, which are typically more muted. We were talking today, can they incorporate pastels? Some things we're going to bring to the board because we don't want a board member driving by and saying, did we look at that? But if someone's coming in with creams, whites, pale colors like that, or neutrals,
They not.
that can be admin.
Right.
So we want to give some flexibility to the applicant. They're just not ready yet to decide the color scheme on all the buildings.
Well, it was such a focal point before.
It really was nice to have all the
with
colors.
those colors.
This was that
Yeah.
pink, yeah.
In fact, I thought it was a copper roof.
Yeah.
Apparently not. That was
At one point it was.
At some point.
It was a redo on the building, yeah.
Yeah, it was just, anyway, nostalgia. I have another one question about the railing materials. I got that. I noticed something a little unusual on the railings. On the, from what I understand, the Cartwright, the ramp, it's designed to match the original design of the pattern of the railing.
Yes.
Which is a little, maybe it's a problem with a little bit. I'm not sure if you don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem if you go back to it that is actually in an angle. It's not vertical. And that happens in other two buildings with a different type of railing, the building C and building G. The ramps, they're drawn as being angled to match the ramp, which is I guess potentially possible if it's a prefabricated panel, but normally they're vertical. The pickets are vertical, even though there's a slope. You know, so if you want to go back and look, and
that might be in the
That one's right.
the CNG the other side or something. There was, maybe I misunderstood.
That one's okay.
The G was something weird.
That one's right.
No? Yeah, am I wrong? Wow.
I think it was just the
They were
calf
vertical,
cart.
it's fine with me, but I just thought there was...
I think it's just the calf cart. And I think that's a very helpful comment that Simeon, you may want to respond to. Is it really a good idea to replicate the railing design on the ADA ramp because it wasn't an original piece? It's a thoughtful comment.
Right. Well, I mean, you guys...
Could it be a vertical picket?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. But I did see, I'm going to check again because I'm not totally crazy. There was in the building, I know the CNG.
G.
No. Isn't it one of them?
That one's angled too.
It's kind of like this one instead of vertical. All right. And that one too.
Could we ask Simeon to please come up? Simeon, I think your intent is probably to do it like...
Yeah, it's supposed to be vertical on that one, and we'll do all of them as vertical.
Right. Okay. No, that's kind of more.
And then what are your thoughts on? I know it's probably a Jared and Simeon question, but I think he makes a really valid point here. And duplicating the historic railing on the ADA ramp really isn't appropriate by the Secretary of the Interior standards.
And we did talk about that, which is why we're here at the board to present it. That was an issue that Ms. Katharina brought up as well. So one of the options that we talked potentially is to do what Dada did, to just do a regular aluminum handrail, and basically make the ramp disappear and really just focus on the railing. We felt that it would be nice to match it, but if the board doesn't like it, I mean, we're open to just doing a regular handrail.
Well, I think it's less about liking it, more about concerns of does it meet the standards.
Yeah.
Correct.
And if it's a concern, we can bring it back to a handrail and make that ramp, basically the rail of that ramp, disappear. I wouldn't recommend putting pickets or anything on there because then it really would stand out and look off. But if we just do a handrail and not necessarily a guardrail, because again, it's technically not required, then I think it would alleviate everyone's concern on it. And I don't think ownership has a problem.
We're open to that. We. This project has always been a private-public relationship. Not one person has all the answers, and so we're here before the board. We're here to preserve it, and Sunday Village is very special to everyone. So open to opinions and direction, but totally okay.
Okay. No, I mean, I personally would prefer not to be different.
We did have that discussion,
Right.
so
Right.
it's I think a good comment.
Yeah.
Okay, almost. I'm done, I guess. Yeah.
Carol?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too, because I think with the extension of that railing, all ornamental, it takes away from the original structure. So that's a good idea. The ramp material, what's that going to be?
The ramp material, it's going to be partially concrete and partially wood. And what I mean by that is the first about 4 feet of the ramp is going to be concrete because we can't get wood to go to a point. But then after that, it's going to be all wood.
Okay, and you said the color of the railings are either a white or a cream?
Yes.
Or something painted. Okay. Did you have something?
No, I was just thinking, there's any solution with adding landscaping or something to make it more safe a little bit from people to try to step out of the ramp in some dangerous way?
There is landscaping around it. It's all low ground cover, so it's not. I don't think it's high enough, but
it's hard. It's the slope, I guess.
We've thought about it. Chris, you can probably speak to it as well. I mean, if someone's gonna fall, they're gonna fall on a plant. Piece of podocarpus may get impaled. It just seemed safer to put a railing. But we've thought about it. Trust me, I pushed back originally. It's like we went to the board, no railings, let's not put them. But I was advised, it's safer for everyone.
Yeah, you probably don't want to put
drinking.
crown of thorns down there.
Right, right, exactly.
Carol, anything else?
Yes. yes, a couple other questions for you. So I don't know too much about vents, and
This is
they do look really large.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a smaller restaurant, or like you said, an ice cream shop, do they require such a large vent, or are there different sizes to meet the needs of a different type of restaurant?
There are different sizes depending on the restaurant. So the size of the hood vent is really dependent on the length of the hood itself. So we designed it, and you're correct, we designed it on the bigger one so we can provide at least 8-foot linear exhaust. But if it was an ice cream shop that doesn't do any form of cooking, it wouldn't even have a hood. Or like we mentioned earlier, if it's a restaurant that has a recirculating hood, they only just need an exhaust and they won't need a secondary unit. But you are correct, they're pretty large units.
This is worst case scenario.
Yes, that's correct.
What we're seeing is worst case scenarios. They could be smaller, there could be none. There could
Yes.
be one. That was Carol or Ms. Perez, that was one of our initial questions, was are they all going to be too big? They're
Yeah,
just
because
big,
if you
you know?
look at
Yeah.
building G, it looks like the vent is larger than the building. I mean, to me, it just
The
it
scale.
really stands out.
Yeah.
It sticks
It
out
is.
like a
Yeah,
sore
it's always
thumb, and I don't think that's the best solution for that building. Are there other types of vents that would come from the walls, or like what?
Yes, they do have wall vents. The problem is wall vents, we need they have to be at least 7 feet high, so someone walking by is not going to get blasted. And the problem is these buildings are just too short, so I can't do a wall exhaust. And the wall exhausts are extremely ugly, and we can't hide them with a screen.
I agree with that.
We did this exercise with Space of Mind.
Yeah.
And all of what Ms. Perez is asking are the questions we asked too.
Yeah.
Couldn't the hood come out and up and then be inside a chimney stack that went up the side of the building, the whole thing? Unfortunately, the size of these vents are so large that the option is it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So in order to obscure it, it's
Okay, so also obscuring it with the material. Like, do you have a sample of that? I mean, what's it going to look like?
It's going to look like wood siding. So what you're seeing on the screen here is hardy board material, so cementitious siding, in a similar profile to the siding that's on the side of the building.
Okay. I will say, for the future presentations, Katharina, this is very helpful because you really showed where these things are going. But the buildings are there. You could take pictures of them, and people could even, you could have presented those vents and right on the photograph, I think.
Like a superimposed rendering?
I think it would have been helpful for
Okay.
me to see how big these things were.
Yeah. Or a SketchUp or
just
something.
to get, because the drawings on paper, the black and white, wasn't really reading for me. That you don't see the dimension too much. Just wanted to bring that up. I hope that those aren't that big. I really don't think G should have that big vent like that. So I think it also would have been better if you would have come one at a time, like when you actually have a tenant and you know what's going to go in there, to come one at a time and come back and really go over what it's going to look like. Because there's a lot of, this is just kind of leaving everything up to what if.
So if we approve the worst case, couldn't an administrative decision be made with regard to scaling it more to ice cream or sandwich shops?
But realistically, we know, and I'm going to move quickly, sorry if I make you dizzy, but I believe we already know from talking with the applicant. Is it B and F that you already have a restaurant coming in, or is it G?
G. Yeah, so G is going to be drinking pig barbecue.
So we already know that those are probably going to happen.
Yeah.
The worst case scenario on G. Right?
Yeah.
You're saying you have tenant coming in to which one? G?
This one,
to
yeah.
G, yeah.
With
so,
the big, huge.
Yeah.
So with it being barbecue, though, the tenant is still working on their interior permit construction documents. We don't know their they haven't presented to us, but it's barbecue, so they're gonna smoke, their food, and so I don't, the design ultimately, it's got to be engineered similar to the signs. We understand making them smaller. From a tenant's perspective, right now what we're presenting, let's just say, is the largest option. They can always go smaller. Referring back to like our BOGO, the joke about BOGO, getting a less expensive fan, that is in the tenant's best interest. So they will properly design their space with the right size, which ultimately the smaller it is, the more cost effective it is for them. And so, making an assumption by saying this, but I am making the assumption that each space will be designed to have the smallest vent possible, because the tenant would be paying for it, out of pocket.
And which other building?
C is going to be Van Leeuwen Ice Cream, and they have no cooking. I don't believe they have no gas. Be ice cream sandwiches, scoops, cones, milkshakes, and all the delicious stuff that I should not eat.
E and F is the one, I think, that's being combined. The two
Yes.
buildings
Yes.
were put together, and I think you anticipate a restaurant user here because the restaurant will be in the building on the left, which you see on the lower part of your screen, and there would be no additional restaurant in the building on the right.
Right. The intent is that B is the kitchen, and then F is the dining room, indoor dining room.
Sorry, an additional question, if I may. None of those has like a service yards or something like that. None of those buildings.
Like for trash and recycling and all that.
So the reason I'm asking this is sometimes you can maybe sacrifice that portion and
I'm
create a
going to
different
go
type of-
back to the site plan and show.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Could you please say your last name for me?
Dumitrescu.
So Vlad.
Couple more times.
Vlad. Let's go with Vlad. That's fine.
Mr. Dumitrescu.
Yeah, that's fine too.
This project has, right where my cursor is, right here, there is an indoor trash room, which we inspected a couple weeks ago, air conditioned. This applicant worked very hard to ensure that they didn't have open air back of house that would be, not attractive. The other place is right here. This is their mechanical yard where they have trash, chillers, generators.
Comm generator,
Backflow,
elevator going down.
Yeah.
FPL vault.
So it's kind of, the way it's been
Right.
designed, it's kind of far away. And then the other piece, just because you're semi-new to the project, is essentially in this area right here and in the front yard of this one is a huge water retention vault that is underground.
A cistern. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
I have pictures of a person standing in it, and
Sure.
you could have two more of those people on top of that person. So I think it was like 25 foot deep or something.
Yeah, it's pretty.
And then underneath the entirety of the site,
It's a good
the
point.
entirety is an underground parking garage.
But not under the historic homes.
But not under the houses. That's right. Thank you, Jared. So a lot of where you're going, we had these conversations in early
Right.
2020 initially, which if you had all of these buildings as restaurant, how are you going to do this? So we've been preparing for this. I'm not going to say it's the most artful or eloquent solution, what we're seeing, but it is the most effective for an adaptive reuse of a house going to a restaurant. And the example that we've seen it not be done right, and no offense because I love their food and I love the building, is Dada's. It's just not, it was not a great solution. So
Carol, are
It's
you?
very challenging.
It's
how,
hard,
How
yeah.
did the house across the street do it, or the Somme
Space of Mind,
Space of Mind?
what we're seeing right here, and it was the same architect. So Mr. Siebert's office, along with Simeon, again, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your last name either. Kirilov,
Kirilov.
Mr. Kirilov, was working with Mr. Siebert to design that solution, and it's very much like what we're seeing on all of these structures, with the wood siding, kind of a boxy solution, like this,
Right.
where it's supposed to kind of have the appearance of a chimney.
And then the Cathcart house, you're gonna move that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think what we'll do is add that as a site plan technical item. This one here,
Yeah.
obviously, it's gonna have to slide over to this part of the roof. So it's gonna go up a little higher.
Okay, I don't have any further
Okay.
questions.
Sorry, on the cat, I noticed something in the rendering that I'm not sure. Those louvers that are above the openings, are those original, or it's not part of an intake air or something?
Which louvers? Oh no, that's
the
the
window.
decorative
But were they
detail. They're
original?
not. I don't think they're actual louvers. I think it's just
These here,
detail.
Yeah, because I've seen a rendering that seems to have and the other one didn't have, so I wasn't sure what was the original
The,
condition.
what you see on the left is what's approved.
Okay. If
they're-
they're part of the design, then it's fine. It's just that for a moment I thought that there was nothing above the window, but
I would have to go back and do a bit of research because the previous
my
architect
presentation.
involved liked to do those designs above windows.
okay.
So I don't know if that was architectural license
Okay. Oh, sorry.
from the previous architect,
Sorry.
or if that was part of the original design. I'm not. I'd have to go back and do a little research.
It was just a rendering that flashed through and looked like it didn't have those, so I wasn't sure. Maybe I missed that.
There.
Oh,
Go back. Oh, right.
oh, they're there?
The
Okay.
pictures I'm looking at.
Oh, the different color.
Can you zoom in on the picture?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Maybe on the next drawing. Go one
I know.
more. There.
No?
Okay.
I don't know that they.
It's not a big deal, but it's just
Right here.
right. Now I was more concerned that they actually vents for something, so,
Above the doors.
so
Yeah.
not just decorative.
I would have to go back and really examine these.
So I have a couple questions. All the good questions always go ahead of me, but I'm a little bit worried, Jared, when you say the vents are in the rear of the building, which makes sense from a historical perspective and not seeing them. But there really is no rear to these buildings because they open up onto a plaza.
Right.
And I'm wondering from a design point of view, because you're probably going to have as much, if not more, traffic coming from the west in the garage than you are coming from the east. So has there been any consideration in terms of design that would minimize that view?
I can answer that question. One of the original designs when we were looking at putting these screens is I tried to put them on the either north or south side of the building so I can leave the back exposed. But that was one of the comments that was brought up by the board, since it is on the side and it can be seen from the front, if I can move them over to the back. But originally I did try to put them on the side because of that reason. Which on the side I mean by the north or
No,
the
I
south
know what
side.
you mean. We certainly have on the side setbacks some considerations for differentiation that perhaps this could fall under if that were a better location. I can see the wheels spinning around in your head.
Well, I'm waiting for you to throw it to
Okay.
me before I don't want to interject.
Okay.
Okay. So from a historic preservation standpoint and the Secretary of the Interior standards, along with our local LDR requirements, the improvement should be on the most inconspicuous side of the building. Even though we have a pedestrian via coming up the center of this site, and the backs will be so visible, the most appropriate place for these are on the rear. What we don't get to see as part of this, and I'm just going to click, this is Jared's, right?
Yep.
What we don't really get to see, but we're seeing in some instances, is the amount of trees, landscaping, and shrubbery that are occurring throughout the via. So I don't like to say landscaping is going to obscure an architectural element, because that's not really how we should be handling things. But to your point, they will be obscured a bit by the landscaping that's going to be occurring through the center of the site, through trees and palms that will help to hide them. But it is the most, inconspicuous spot is supposed to be on the rear of the building. So the front technically is Swinton.
That crossed my mind too, and the way I thought is a lot of people will be driving on Swinton, and there's a lot of traffic there, so I think that maintains the historic character of the street, and then you come in and there's a new character there.
Well, I'm just thinking that a lot of the socialization and the walking and everything is going to be in that piazza, in that walkway.
Yeah,
Particularly
there's
because
no great solution.
no.
So the kitchens will be in the back,
The
and people will not walk in those doors that are along that west side?
I can answer to that question. We are going to try to push the kitchens to the back. However, they don't necessarily have to be all the way in the back, because luckily the way hoods are designed these days, even though the hood is large, what comes out of the hood is about a 12-inch metal vent. And that metal vent, you can snake it through the entire house and technically pop it out of anywhere. So it doesn't limit them on where to put the hoods, but we do make the recommendation for them to put the hood in the back, also for access to all the cleaning, and it's you really don't want a kitchen right at the front.
And if I may, and you correct me if I'm off here, but originally we also did study the potential of using the existing chimneys to avoid doing this. However, the size of the unit didn't sit proper, and so we had to do it the conventional way.
Was there any consideration of the trees location, or moving the trees if there's one slightly off, to move it so it's a little bit more obstructing of?
We could look at
I would defer to staff. I mean, right now they're on the elevation, they're on the plan that's before you. If that can be administratively approved when a tenant does come in for a build out, I think,
our
landlord, we would be okay with it as well.
Our recent Chapter 2 updates allow some administrative approval authority for landscape plans. So if it's a tree shifting 4 foot to the south to, provide a better screening of a hood vent, then
On a focal point,
we could
in
handle
the
that
project.
admin.
If it's just you see it from all these angles, but the
Absolutely,
tree
yeah.
could just move a little bit and
Yeah,
block it, it would
absolutely.
be a good option.
I think that would give they would have to do some thought in laying the landscape plan out with the location of hood
Sorry,
vents.
trees and landscaping is already in commencement. So I apologize. What I thought you were referring to was
Trees and landscaping around the historic structures.
no, sorry, just moving to the site. I don't know. I mean, we'd have to.
Because we were just out there, they weren't ready yet for landscaping.
Sorry. What I mean, the process of amending the landscape plan and all that, if that's done administratively, that is a process.
Yeah.
We don't want that to delay. What I thought you were referring to was the specific location. If that, because the hood's not going on right now. I don't want to necessarily start moving around trees for the potential of something not going there. But when a tenant comes out to do their build out, all the gumbo limbo is here. Okay, it's on the plan here, but tell your tenant that they've got to move it
I
over.
think let's not get so mired in the details, right?
Sorry.
I think what they're saying is, on the approved plan, here's the hood vent. Let's just make sure that there's a tree somewhere in and around the west side of that hood vent
Okay.
that would help to obscure it. That's what they're saying. So we could look at that admin,
Okay.
because the hood vent shouldn't be shifting on the building. So you should be able to say, here's that vent. But yes, we can handle that admin with the applicant.
If in the future the tree's been there, it's and they want to add a vent on the plan, if they could move that vent a few feet and it just works with focal points, then I think that's another route to use the tree to block it, as long as it architecturally works. Right. It shouldn't be like we're going to move it here for the tree, but it looks terrible with the with the location. I guess that would be administratively.
We could
decided.
look at it, yes.
I'm going to move us along. Solution by landscape architect. I like that.
Did it.
Can we talk about the replacement of the wood and how the decisions were made about which wood can be saved and which wood cannot be saved. We have in the past had people bring the wood in and show what they can do with it. And sort of together with that is how much of the original siding is going to be left? Are we talking about 50%, 5%?
So I think as the construction team is analyzing it, as staff mentioned, that we would call them, but it I think would be as a case by case basis. I mean, the goal is to not replace anything. If there's extensively damaged, can't be repaired. I mean, that's not a detailed answer, but I mean, we do take every care and effort to restore these to their original design and not compromise bringing in as minor new materials as possible.
I know, given the environment and the wood structure, that it's not going to last hundreds of years. But
they've done pretty good so far.
Can't you use some epoxies to save the wood, and if it isn't too far gone?
I would defer to architect or the construction team. But
It really depends on the damage. So a lot of it has rotted or has termite damage. But some of them, the biggest issue we had was with building G and building F. There was a aluminum siding that was put on top of the original wood siding. So a lot of that original wood siding has screw holes in it. Those we can probably do with a filler, but the dry rotted ones we really can't.
Okay. So you've considered all these things?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And we are documenting all of that so we can double check what we can save and what we can't. We're not just ripping things out without assessing it.
Great.
Yeah.
And
Just-
we have made that clear to the contractor on site that the goal should not be to take all of the siding off and put all new siding on. The goal should be to preserve as much as possible, especially because this wood, as we know, those in the field know, old wood is hard, new wood isn't as hard.
Mm-hmm.
So the damage that we typically see, aside from the ones that are aluminum siding that we're covering the wood, but typically we see damage around windows and doors.
Yeah.
Min traditional with not a lot of roof overhang, you'll see some damage there too because of weak spots in paint and things.
Also,
But
usually about the first 2 to 3 feet of the house, you get a lot of dry rot there from all the water. But usually the top few feet are in pretty good shape.
so we've made it very clear.
Okay.
Please do not just go take off.
I'm happy.
If they find that they have to, we want it to be.
Let me ask just one more question. The design of the railings, particularly the pickets, what consideration did you give to tying that design into the Cathcart design on the railings and, by extension, the new buildings?
In terms of the Cathcart, we did not, because the Cathcart is its own building. It's the railings were very unique, so we left the railings as they were. Regarding the other buildings, we used the original rectory buildings as kind of like a base to tie everything in together, because the original railings of the rectory building were pretty historic. In terms of the new construction, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I wasn't the designer of that one, but I believe a lot of the railings on the stairs, it's really just a handrail. It doesn't actually have a railing on it.
yeah, so the railings for the new construction was originally derived from the Anglo-Caribbean style, where it was just the simple. I think it was to replicate like a 2x4 on the bottom, and then the handrail up top, and then the pickets that need to be spaced out to require to make sure someone can't go through it. And so the design for the other structures was to just keep it as simple as possible, which requires piece on the bottom, piece on top, connectors. Yeah. So it's the minimum you can do to meet code. Right?
Okay. All right. Somebody want to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to. Mr. Chair, I'd like to move approval of the Level 1 Site Plan Modification and Certificate of Appropriateness 2024-233 for the property located at Sunday Village, Block 61, Old School Square Historic District, by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in land development regulations.
Second?
Question, do we have to,
Wait, is there a second? He's asking for a second as opposed to making a second because he's
We'll
the
still
chair
have
and
time for
can't.
I'll second.
Okay, great.
No.
Now you can ask the
the
question.
chimney being moved on that one unit, do we have to mention that?
As a condition, or
Or not
can it
the
just be a
chimney.
technical item?
I don't understand the question.
On building E, putting it on the,
We're going to add that as a site plan technical item, so you don't have to add it as a condition.
Okay,
Okay.
good question.
My question.
Good question.
And then where do we leave off on the ramp to Cathcart? Go with the simple
yes.
non-style?
Do you want to go with the simple or with the decorative?
That's at the board.
I heard kind of a consensus up here of simple.
The simple, okay.
I think that does need to be made a condition of
Yeah.
your motion if you guys want that in there, just because that's
Sure, I'd like
not to
to
the original.
modify my motion to add that the ramp to the Cathcart house railing can be a simple design as approved by staff.
Okay.
Okay. Second?
I'll second that motion.
Any more questions? Call the roll, please.
Carol Perez,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Chris Cabezas,
Yes.
Vlad Dumitrescu,
Yes.
Jim Chard.
Yes. Great work as always.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So do we,
At this point, if you're at the board's discretion, if you would like to open public
Okay.
comment back up, I think you could go ahead and do that right now.
Do we
and
have-
then go
I'm okay
into
with that.
staff
You're
and
okay,
board
Pete?
comments.
Sure.
okay.
Yeah, I can hear. I can't stay long, but thank you, Bryce.
Step right up, Sandy.
Thank you for your
We will need
consideration.
him to be sworn in, right?
This is true, but you have signed up. didn't you?
Yeah, we need to be
This
sworn.
isn't.
It-
This isn't.
do-
quasi-
Yeah, it's not quasi judicial, so you guys can go ahead and speak on it.
I can speak?
Yep,
Thank you.
go ahead.
Thank you.
They don't need to be sworn.
Okay. Again, for the record, Sandy Zeller, 209 Northwest 12th Street. I'm a member of the board of the Delray Beach Preservation Trust. So we're here before you today to ask this board to support the, all right, Diane, can you, well, let me hang on to this. To support our resolution to the City Commission to allow Veterans Park on the local registry of historic places. Veterans Park has just celebrated 100 years of its existence. It was purchased by the city in March 1924. The park and a lot of the facilities at the park are historic. We have some pictures attached to the resolution. I won't bother to read the resolution. We're passing it out to everybody. But the pictures go back all the way to the 1920s. There was a bandbox there where performances were done. We, of course, have the lawn bowling and the shuffleboard courts in the rear. They're historic as well. They were built in the 1960s. The building that's there now, the rec center, was, as we say in our resolution, was designed by Kenneth Jacobson and built in 1966. He was a prominent Delray Beach architect. The rec center and the park are historically appropriate. They are fitting of being designated for historic places and preserved by the city. So that is the purpose. I'm not going to take up a lot more of your time. You can certainly peruse our resolution. It's basic. We were requested by staff or told by staff that before we could make the application to city commission, we have to have it presented to this board and get the support of this board. So that is simply what we're asking this board to do. The Preservation Trust has agreed to do the application work and prepare the nuts and bolts of the application, give the historic background that's required in the application. We believe that it's perfectly fitting, and we believe that the park should be protected going forward. So that is my ask of this board, and we respectfully request positive consideration. Thank you.
What is the timing?
Pardon me?
What is your timing?
The timing is overdue, frankly.
Good answer.
I don't think we're under the gun for to have it done. We did want to make the request at the next commissioners' meeting in either this month or in December, so that we can get the staff and begin that process.
I would ask, have you talked to the Parks Department at all particularly about the rec center? I mean, having spent quite a bit of time in that place, I'm not sure that they might not have other plans for it.
Well, to my knowledge, that there are no formal plans, that designating it as a historic place will enable the city to make applications to the state for grant money to rebuild or preserve what's already there. I visited the rec center recently, not maybe in the last month or so. It's still in constant use. There are people there, and everybody uses it. The lawn bowling and the shuffleboard courts have fallen into disrepair. Quite frankly, in my opinion, it's because of the construction that has gone on that has prevented people from using Northeast First Street to get to the courts, but they can be rebuilt, they can be renovated and used further. There was a request by Atlantic Crossing of the City Commission to allow the entire strip of parking that is on the west side of the park, but it's part of the park, to be used for their mobilization of construction equipment, and Atlantic Crossing's suggestion was that they totally eliminate the lawn bowling and the shuffleboard courts in its entirety while they mobilize and allow some parking to be used in that regard. We went to the board. I participated in that on behalf of the Preservation Trust and strongly opposed that request. Unfortunately, the commission turned it down because it's not a proper use of the historic park.
So Kelly, I'm guessing we need to look at this and have a discussion, and we can't do that tonight.
Sure, I'll defer to Prime.
Yeah.
Sorry, I turned off my microphone. Why don't we let Mr. Patton and then Mr. Cope give their comments, and then you guys can talk about it during board comments, or you can talk about it, next meeting. It's up to the board.
Okay. That's basic. Price patent 1020 Tamron Road, Delray. Basically, that's what we are hoping. We'd like to get this. We'd like a show of support from your board. Technically, there's 3 agencies that can initiate historic preservation. It's this board, it's the owner, it's the city commission. Well, in this case, the city commission owns it. We've talked with staff about our preparation of the application. We just think if this board supports the preservation of the park in a general sense, it will give a little more gravitas to our presentation. The park has been actively used since these pictures will show you the park's been actively used. Period of significance would be 1924 to 1974. which means it's the first 50 years is historic. It's pretty clear that the rec center is historic. There's the Veterans Monument, which I think your grandfather was involved with, John. That was built installed in 47. The landscape has changed over the years, but according to the open spaces, according to the Secretary of the Interior, open spaces and other landscapes are equally important in promoting the histories of a community as buildings are. This is a lovely little park. It's a beautiful little respite in the middle of what's becoming a kind of a bustling town. We just think there's a lot of challenges to development, and a lot of our historic structures are being challenged by development, and we think that this would be a good move. So we would love at least a motion of not necessarily a motion, but some kind of a vote or some kind of a consensus of support, so we can say when we go to the City Commission next week that the Historic Preservation Board supports the concept.
Would you know, or Michelle, is that park part of the historic Atlantic Historic District?
It's not.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's proposed to be part of the Historic Atlantic District.
But that's
Yeah.
DOA at this point.
But
So
that doesn't seem like that's going. So
yeah, I mean personally, if I can weigh in,
Please.
I think let's just finish comments
done.
and then I
I'm
think
done.
you guys
Right,
could
he's
go
done.
to the
Sorry.
board.
I'm done.
I'll just
Oh,
Roger Cope Architects Inc., 701 Marina Historic District, or 701 Southeast First Street, I think, in the Marina Historic District. Great point. The park is adjacent to the bridge, the Atlantic Avenue Bridge, which is an individually designated site, which is spectacular. We don't want to connect with it. We don't want to be associated with it, but it helps bolster our position. And of course, the bridge is adjacent to the Marina Historic District, so it's a lineage of.
And Deck 84 is a contributing building.
Say that again.
Deck 84 is a contributing building.
Okay, yeah. So there's a link,
Yeah.
and this park is under siege, as you guys have seen over the past 5 years. That the developers are targeting and picking apart those parcels of property that are open and park-like, and taking pieces of gigantic chunk. They're attacking churches, everything out there where there's an opportunity to make a buck. We're trying to protect the park for the next 100 years. So just some support. We don't need a vote or anything. Just some general support tonight would go a long way. Thank you.
John?
yeah, I would just say I wholeheartedly would support designation for that site, whether this is the exact language or how that happens. I'm wholeheartedly in support of that. So my grandfather was the band director and created the women's band in the 20s. I'm intimately aware of this. I think the band shell, when it was torn down, was a loss, but where was that? I think Price
lot.
knows it was
Parking
where
lot.
the parking lot is now. So it faced east.
Yeah.
And so the people gathered there, and I have family photos of this going way back. So, not my personal, connection, take away from that.
We may
I
have to
still feel
recuse. So.
Yeah, no. I still feel that as they say, this property right now, if anybody had the inclination to, the city got in, financial straits and wanted to sell it off, this is millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars. So not that designation would prevent that or completely eliminate anything from happening there, but I think it's a good step to help preserve it. And I don't know if you want a motion on that or how you.
I think the best practice, obviously they can communicate whatever you guys are saying here, but as far as like the best practice for you guys as a board, like recommending a memo to the city commission, whether you guys want to recommend it based on the resolution language, or if you're just recommending it like you think that designation of that property is appropriate, you could recommend a memo to
Or
the city
consensus.
commission.
Consensus would work too, that the board supports designation. I mean,
I don't know what that would mean though. What how, what would that allow you to do?
So the reason why I suggest that, rather than a memo, no offense here, and we talked about this when we met, is because the way the LDRs are written, when it comes to nomination for designation to the local register of historic places, there are three options. It's the property owner, the city commission, or the historic preservation board that can make a recommendation for nomination. The reason why I get a little nervous with a memo is because this board wouldn't be nominating the park, but would be supporting if the commission chose to nominate it. And ultimately, it's the commission that would make the nomination, as they are also representing the property owner, the city.
Wouldn't this be very similar to what we did on the golf course?
I mean,
When the trust presented,
that's already in motion.
I realize
You
that,
know,
but I
so-
mean, it's a model to follow.
I mean, we'll do what the board, staff will do what the board suggests, but I'm thinking, you have these folks here from the Delray Beach Preservation Trust who are going to petition the city commission and ask for the park to be designated. They're going to say they came to HPB, and the commission may or may not say, what did HPB say? And if the board said there's a consensus to designation, that can be reported in our minutes in their report to the commission. So it could be either way, just I don't know how formal you need to make it.
I would like to make a motion to this, make a motion expressing this board's support of designation of Veterans Park as a contributing historic site to the city of Delray Beach.
Well done, yeah.
Does that work?
Perfect. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call the
I
roll.
just, oh, we're, okay.
You're in board discussion, yeah.
Oh.
Do you
I just
want to
wanted
say
something? I know that, you know, you might have had an issue with moving the parking to where the courts are. So those courts, you know, they're not being used right now, I believe. Is that,
Yeah, I think
they're
that's
not
right.
being used. But what that would have done, because I did work on that plan, what that would have done was given another 60 feet to the park itself, actually creating a larger park within, you know, that space. It was consolidating the parking on the north side. And then there was a walkway, so you could still get to Atlantic Avenue, but, you know, it was actually enlarging, it wasn't cutting up the space, it was actually making it a larger whole. And I think the site's way overdue for a renovation, and it's a gem that's just underused.
Carol, if I may, the lawn bowling organization that's been there 62 years, they use it all the time.
Okay.
The courts.
Okay.
Okay. I think unless there's an amendment to the motion, we should go ahead and vote on the motion.
Diane?
Carol Perez,
Yes.
John Miller,
Yes.
Peter Dwyer,
Yes.
Chris Capezas,
Yes.
Vlad Dumitrescu,
Yes.
Jim Chart.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for
We
your time.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, so reports and comments. You all have the agenda for the upcoming year of all of our meetings. Put this into your calendars, whether it's paper, digital, phone, computer, whatever. Unless you hear otherwise, these are our dates. For those of you who are new to the board, and I know you've already done training, but also please pay attention to the absentee policy that's within our city code requirements, because that can catch up with you quickly. In fact, I think, Vlad, you're replacing a person who was removed for absences, maybe? Anyway, pay attention to that, because we are not going to be sending you reminders of how many meetings you've lost or missed. So if you missed the certain number and you're removed, you're just going to get a letter that you're removed, unfortunately. At our last meeting, Chairman, you asked about the in lieu of parking code amendment. And so we did some research. Kelly and I chatted about it today. The in lieu of parking came before the board in July, and the board voted on it, and it was a unanimous vote of 6-0, I believe it was. And that recommendation has been made to the city commission. The item is set for first reading in the next city commission meeting. And then second reading, I believe, is December 10th, where the fee will be voted on. So this board's already spoken on it. I think what you may have been asking about, or maybe I was misunderstanding, is there was the private parking lot amendment that was scheduled for the August meeting, and we didn't have a quorum for August, and it hasn't made it back onto the agenda. We expect that will come before the board in December from our staff. So that's the private parking lot amendment. It's different than in lieu. So that's just a quick update from our last meeting that you had
My
asked.
specific concern there was that reducing in lieu has the prospect of damaging historical preservation.
But the board's already weighed in and made their comments on it, so there's nothing further that this board can do to send up to the commission other than as a private resident or property owner, you could go to the city commission meeting and make comment during the item. So we will have another new board member at our next meeting. He was just appointed.
You have a name?
It reminded me of Vlad's name.
No.
He's
Forget
somebody,
it then.
he's somebody who's involved with affordable housing or something like that. Zed? I'm sorry. It's off the top of my head right now. I don't
I'll go back and
remember.
look at them.
So we're supposed to have 7 people?
We are a 7-member board, yes. No alternates. I don't think I have anything else. Just remember, every meeting we're going to be at 5:01. So thank you for everyone being here on time.
Okay, you're excused.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody on the board have any comment?
Well, when we brought up Deck 84, what's happening with the paint situation?
I would have to defer that question to Katharina. I'm not sure.
Nothing. I don't think anything's been done yet.
Okay. I don't know.
Peter?
Nope. Good to see everybody.
Vlad, good to have you on the board.
Thank you.
The youngest member of the board.
Maybe not.
I just want to ask the question, did the letter that we worked over for some time actually get sent to?
Not yet.
Okay.
No.
Can we
We
try
will
to have
send
a
it.
date certain on that?
Yeah, I'll work on it this week. We'll get it sent up.
All right.
Yep. Because it's done. There's nothing else to add to it. We got our direction on adding stuff to the website. I don't think that needs to be put in the memo. So absolutely, we'll get it done this week.
Fantastic.
Yep.
I would love to have a tour of the Cindy Village project.
Okay. They have time-lapse videos that they're preparing for us too, and some of our newer board members may not have seen these in the past, where we asked them to install cameras from the beginning of the project so we could kind of see the shift that had occurred in the site. I've asked for an updated looped one where I have all the time-lapse put together, so we'll probably have one of those for you soon.
But there's nothing like walking the property.
Yeah, and I know that we could mention it to their team, their construction team, and see what they think about entertaining the board for a tour. But I'd also have to defer to our director and legal team to make sure that I wouldn't need to advertise that as a sunshine meeting. So we'll see. I'll look into it.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. This meeting is over.
Thank you.
You can't.
All right, thank you.